Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to your very own channel, Easy and Effortless Economics. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss about business cycle, like what is business cycle and what are the different phases of business cycle and how it affects the business. So, without any delay, let's start. Let's understand the meaning of business cycle. Basically, as we all know, business cycle means basically it's a process which takes business to different levels from making it reach to the highest level, like reaching to the profits, and then at times there were losses in the business. So basically, it shows the overall fluctuations in the business or in the economy. So let's have a look. It refers to the overall economic activity of a country, specifically how that activity fluctuates in the aggregate and how it might follow patterns in a given period of time, because the fluctuation that takes place over a period of time in the business that affects the economy is known as your business cycle. It shows the fluctuations in trade, production, and general economic activities. It is also known as trade cycle, economic cycle, or boom bust cycle. These are the alternate names that we can use to address or define business cycle. Now, let's see what are the various phases. When we talk about business cycle, it has four phases: expansion, crisis, recession, and recovery. So as we know that everything starts in a manner that first starts reaching or moving to a level from where it start gaining maximum benefit, but after a point of time it starts falling down. So in the same manner, business experiences these different phases and how it copes with all these phases and how it comes out of that, and ultimately it reaches towards the final goal. So that's very common for every business that they have to go through all these stages or all these phases of business. Let's understand the first one, that is expansion. This is considered one of the most important phase of the business, because what happens during this time, the value of real goods, or you can say real GDP, increases. And when the value of GDP increases, or the what happens, there are a number of goods and services available, and consumers are more than happy to spend on all the number of goods that they are getting. So this is considered as one of the most advantageous or the profitable phase of the business, where revenue starts pouring in because more of the goods are coming into the market and people are purchasing them. So it says that the economic activity of a nation grows during this phase. The value of real GDP increases and there are numerous goods and services available. And as a result, consumers are spending more, and ultimately it results in economic growth and results in getting more revenue for the business. So this is the first phase of your business cycle. Now, moving ahead with the next phase, let's have a look. Next is your crisis. This arises when there are a number of difficulties, or you can say there is a drop in value and industrial fluctuations, economic fluctuations, or production dips, or market crash. All these issues are going around. So, what happens when everything is not working in progress, or when everything is facing a tough time, even the markets, the production sector, the industrial sector? So, what will happen? Definitely, it will going to affect the business. So, it says this crisis occurs when some of the financial assets, what happened in financial assets of a nation, drop in value, typically by a large amount, and it is due to any of the reasons that we have discussed: financial bubble, banking panic, industrial production dip, or market crisis or market crash. So it is not only limited to those fluctuations, it means it covers the entire economy. These are just few of the factors which are considered that lead to this crisis situation, but there are many more factors which affect the economy, then ultimately it results in affecting the business equally. And when this situation occurs, when what happens when economy faces tough time, this is an indication that it is heading towards the next level of business cycle, that is the recession. So let's see what happens. So after this phase, it reaches to the next level, that is recession. So basically recession, what happens during recession, that's the thing starts declining, the economic growth starts declining, and the consumer spending slows down, and ultimately you can see that the number of factors are working against in the sense that there is no growth, so people have lesser amount of money, lesser goods are available in the market, lesser revenue. So ultimately recession is not an ideal or a good situation for any of the business, because it is an indication that the business is not heading on the right path and they need to move out of this. But as we know, every phase is temporary. This too shall pass. So a crisis becomes a recession when the economic activity of the nation shows significant decline as consumer spending slows substantially and there is volatility in the markets. So this can happen when the factors that caused a crisis become worse, or if an economic bubble pops, causing people's possessions to lose value and aggregate demand to drop. And why does it happen? When the crisis reaches to a next level, then it turns out to be recession. And during this situation, the spending is really low, the goods and services are very less, they are available in the economy in very less amount. So this is considered as the crucial phase for any of the business. But after this phase comes the recovery. What happens in recovery? Recovery means to revive out of all that difficult times. So recession, when the recession ends, the company, the country or the economy hits one of its turning points, and that is recovery process. What it is, let's see. This is when the nation's economic conditions begin to adapt to the problems that cause the crisis and recession. The market can often be an indicator of a recovery cycle. This is the time when the companies or the businesses start moving out of the crisis or the difficult times they have seen. That can be because of anything, any of the factor which is affecting the economy and which is going to equally affect the business. So for that purpose, these cycles are, so recovery phase is the time when that phase is covered up and the business reaches to a different level. Now let's have a look at the quick example of business cycle. This is one of the great example. It is of Great Depression, which occurred in the year 1929 and it lasted for 1933. Means it lasted for 4 years. And the policymakers thought that it is going to be the end of the saga, means one its end by 1933, but that wasn't the case. It was again, there was another, once it was over in 33, again the next recession started in 1937 and it lasted for till the beginning of Second World War, that is around 1939. So these great depressions, or you can say these depressions, were the time, or these were the recessions or the difficult times for the economy, when it is difficult for them to sustain the growth, when it is difficult for them to survive, and they struggle really hard to achieve that point of, what you can say, point of maximization that they always look for. Here you can see the diagram. We have peak, then we have trough, and then we have expansion. So you can see different phases starting from peak, then recession, trough, recovery, and expansion. So ultimately the cycle moves on. There is a fluctuation you can see, and during the course of fluctuation you can see inflationary gap, recessionary gap. So what are all these gaps? Let me just explain you quickly. Basically, inflationary gap is the, basically it's a measure that measures the difference between the current level of GDP and the GDP that would exist if an economy would operate at full employment level. Means the difference between the present GDP and the GDP that the economy would have if it is operating at full employment. Full employment, you know, when all the resources are utilized, or all those who are willing to work at the prevailing wage rate, they are able to find the work. Then another thing it says that we have seen in the diagram, it was about recessionary gap. What is that recessionary gap? It is the difference between the GDP, the present GDP, and the potential GDP. What is potential GDP? Potential GDP means the level at which it can reach. For example, the present GDP is 3.5. So what is the potential GDP? So potential GDP means the level at which, to which it can increase. It can be 7, it can be 8. So the difference between the GDP and the potential GDP. This gap can be used to determine how long it will take for a country to recover from a recession. Means this recessionary gap is an indication for the economy to understand that how long will it take to come out of that phase of recession. Recession is not a good condition for any of the economy or of the business, because this is the time when things start falling down. The growths were lowered down, the employment levels were lowering down. So for, as a result of this, the economy cannot sustain that level of growth that it is aiming for, and the businesses are suffering equally. But this all these phases are temporary, and once this recession phases end, it reaches to the recovery, and from recovery it reaches to the expansion. So these are the cycles or the phases of business that every business experiences, and there is no definite time period. Or if you will ask that expansion lasts for how long, or recession lasts for how long, or how long it will take to recover, there is no specific time limit or no definite time to state that. It absolutely depends upon the conditions. It absolutely depends upon the factors that are affecting the business. So I hope this concept of business cycle and phases of business cycle is clear to you all. In the next lecture, I'm going to come up with the theories of business cycle. So what are all more topics you want me to cover up, just let me know. I'll try to cover up all those things that you all want me to cover. So that's all for today. I hope you all had a great weekend. Enjoy, keep learning, and stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. God bless you all.